Welcome to another edition of Creative Space on Wide Bay ITV, and I am so lucky that today's guest is a local artist and creator of these beautiful children's books. I want to welcome Lauren Cavino from Gin Gin.
Thank you. Thank you, Karina.
And I've got to say, I'm looking at the Nearby Nana and the Not So Far Pa. Now, these books, you've written them yourself, you've done all the hard work yourself. So can you just tell me a little bit about, first we'll go back to the very start, what brought you to Gin Gin?
So what brought me to Gin Gin, that's a bit of a long story. So I met my partner is actually Australian, so he's from Bendigo, and I met him overseas in Japan while we were teaching English there. And we ended up traveling around teaching English, traveling around Southeast Asia and New Zealand, and then we moved back to Australia in 2010, and we decided we were living in Bendigo for a bit, and then we decided that we missed the warm weather and the sunshine, and we moved up to Gin Gin and bought land, and yes, so that's how we ended up in Gin Gin.
So in your travels and in your wildest dreams, did you ever think that you would be writing a book one day?
I did. I had always wanted to write a book. I never thought that it would be a children's book, but I started writing when I was really young, and I absolutely loved writing as a child. I used to enter all these song and poetry contests, and I'm from New York City originally, so I used to enter a lot of rapping contests and whatnot. And yeah, but I never thought that I would write a children's book. I always kind of thought it would be a memoir of my travels. But then when I had my own children, and you know, you're just reading so many children's books all the time, and then you kind of start to think, oh, hey, I could actually, you know, I could do this. I could probably write a children's book. And yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. Yes.
So I've noticed the Nearby Nana, that was your first book. So what was the idea for writing, and how did the idea of the Nearby Nana sort of take shape?
So the Nearby Nana was, it was actually inspired by my daughter. So I wrote it during COVID, during the lockdown. So we were having a pretty difficult time, like so many people were. My in-laws from Victoria were going to come up and visit, and then at the last minute, their trip here was cancelled. And my 6-year-old at the time, she was absolutely devastated. And we started talking about, you know, we don't have family here, and yes, you don't have a grandparent here, and they can't visit, and we're not sure how long they can't visit for. But what can we do to recreate that feeling of family in Gin Gin where we live? And we started talking about, you know, different friends that we had, and you know, could that person possibly be like a nana to you, or could that person be like an auntie, and how can we maybe develop some of those friendships in the greater community? And that's when the idea for the Nearby Nana came up, that maybe we could look to someone closer to kind of fill that role while we are separated from family.
So the process of writing the book from your initial idea and the conception of it, what were the steps that you actually had to take? Was there a formula that you had yourself, or did you copy, not so much copy, but did you modify maybe somebody else's formula? And for anyone else wanting to do it, how did you find that initial, oh, I'm going to do a book, to, right, let's do this?
So I actually, well, initially I was trying to get a contract with a traditional publisher, but I found that was, you know, a pretty big outlay. So then I decided to go down the self-publishing road, and I read a book about self-publishing, and that helped immensely. So I just, you know, looked into, you know, what do I need to do? Okay, so I had my manuscript, which is, you know, obviously the most difficult part. And then, you know, how do I find an illustrator? Okay, and I had a look around, went onto Facebook, was able to, you know, find, you know, there were a couple hundred people that answered my question for, you know, that I needed an illustrator for this story. And then from there, yeah, I basically just went through, found a formatter, and that was it really. It was actually not as difficult as I had imagined it would be.
So the idea from the start of the book. So did you have a formula set down, like say I'm going to write about these places or these people, or did it just sort of happen? Did it just evolve?
It actually just evolved really quickly. So I just came home from work one night and I just felt like, what am I waiting for? We had this idea, I had the title, The Nearby Nana, and I loved the title, and I just knew that I could write a story about it, and I was just kept putting it off. And yeah, the kids went to bed early one night and I just said, that's it. Like, I'm going to sit down and be focused and write the story. And so I actually wrote the story over 2 nights. And yeah, the characters, so one of the characters is actually based on a really good friend, and her relationship with our daughter. Yeah, so I did have some of the characters in mind, and then the rest of the character, is kind of my family. Yeah, and it just kind of just flowed really quite easily. Yeah.
So I noticed in the book, and we had spoken about this previously when we had first met, that the illustrations, what was the biggest challenge in getting the illustrations done for the book?
So the biggest challenge I'd say for me with the illustrations was that I think in words, not pictures. And I had a difficult time initially conveying to someone exactly what I wanted on each page of the story, and also how to make that interesting for the children and parents that would be reading it. So I guess that was probably a challenge at times for me, being really, really clear on the colors that I want, the backgrounds, how simple or how ornate I wanted things to be. And Champa, the illustrator Champa Gunawardana, is from Sri Lanka, and yeah, and so I guess so some things maybe that I would think of like an Australian, in the Not So Far Pa, there's a picture of a gate, and like initially she sent through like a brick wall, and I was thinking corrugated iron, like an Aussie type gate, things like that. So just trying to be as explicit as possible with the ideas that I had in my head, and then kind of conveying them to Champa so that she would be able to follow on, onto what I had hoped to get out of the book, and which she did beautifully. So I've been really lucky.
She certainly has the pictures, the illustrations, but the colours and I think even the simplicity of the books are what, as me being a Lola, as I'm known to my grandchildren, but me being a Lola is, the kids just love the colours. So when you were doing this, did you, as you started to sort of evolve and it grew, what were some of the things as far as costing and funding? So I know for, when you're doing self-publishing, the cost is all borne on yourself. So did you actually manage to get funding? And if you did get funding, where was the funding from, and how hard was it to get?
Well, so for the Nearby Nana, I funded that myself completely. But then for the Not So Far Pa, I was really, really lucky so I received a grant from the Regional Arts Development Fund, and through the Queensland Government partners with, and the Bundaberg Regional Council, gave me a grant to bring that out, to publish it, and also to promote the Nearby Nana, which was fantastic. It was such a load off because, as you said, yeah, the costs involved in self-publishing can be huge. So I was really lucky and thankful to have that help me, to get my work out and to just be able to focus on creating with the second book, and not so worried about how am I going to,
Yeah, so you just mentioned there about, promoting your books. So some of the things that we've seen is, you've done book readings and book publishing, and recently there was the Moore Park Beach Arts Festival. So that was really good. How were you received out there?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yes, so I did a self-publishing, picture book self-publishing workshop. And I had, a small group of adults turn out, about 6 adults that were all interested in picture book publishing. And it was really great. They were all really, really happy and felt that the information given was really valuable. And, it was just going to help them get their own books out there, which I think is so fantastic because everyone has a story. And sometimes people like me, like I was initially, so daunted by this process of getting, you have this dream of getting your work out there, but then you're just a bit scared of how, how can I go about doing this? And
I've seen pictures, and we do have some pictures which the audience will be able to look at, but I've seen pictures of you at book readings and with children, just absolutely they're so sort of transfixed on what you're doing. Now, I've got to say, this little character, she is absolutely gorgeous. So what is her name?
So her name is Little Nana.
I love puppets, but I'm just being the big kid here. I think it just goes back to my Muppet days. I just love the fact that you've got this amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So does she help? Does she help break down the barriers?
She does, and she's fantastic. So when I went up on my book tour funded by the Regional Arts Development Fund up to Rocky, I had a group of older children at the library there, like grade 5, 6. And older kids at times can be pretty reluctant writers. And I was giving them writing tasks, and which isn't, for a lot of kids, it's not fun. But Little Nana makes it fun, and Little Nana makes it so that they want to do it, and they want to participate, and they want to give it a go. And also Nana does, when I do the reading, she does a bit of a song usually. And, and I talk a lot to the kids about how poetry is a great way to write a story, really. And my books are all in rhyming scheme. They're basically just long poems, and kids could relate to that. They, everyone knows a nursery rhyme, and then you just kind of fill in, change the words a bit, and Little Nana helps them with that. And yes, they love it. It's really fantastic.
So I've noticed in some of the images that we've got through that recently there was a very lovely, colourful character all dressed up. So. I've been in theatre. I love it when people go that one step further. So what was the idea, and where was the inspiration for the costumes?
Well, I just love dress up. I'm a bit of a ham.
Do you find that dressing up in costumes a bit of an icebreaker for the kids?
I guess, yes. And I mean, they all just, they laugh when you walk in. They just, they think it's funny. I mean, and I think it also relaxes me too a bit, because I'm kind of in that character of Nana. And because initially even though my background is teaching, it's different when you're teaching and you're in the same classroom every day with the same kids that know you and you're up in front of, but then when you're going to a library or you're going to a school and you're getting up in front of people that you've never seen in your life, it is a bit intimidating. So I do feel like, even for me, or I found it intimidating at least, I do feel like for me, being dressed up as Nana, definitely it helps break the ice for the kids and for myself.
No, it's fantastic. So going back to Little Nan the puppet, have you learned ventriloquism?
Not very well. I try. I probably think I'm a lot better than I am.
Look, I have seen it in action, and look, I've just got to say that I think she's really, really good. Now, how did your daughter relate to all this? What was her take on it?
She really, she loves it. So because we homeschool our children, so she comes along to all of the readings. And, there's times that I get to certain parts of the book and I can see her eyes welling up a bit, because it is such every time I read it, like, it's just such an emotional topic. It just hits home and for her and so many other people as well.
I think too, we look at the book and we think it's a beautiful picture and it's got great poetry, the words flow, but the meaning behind the book, it is because we forget that for the families that are lucky enough to have, mum and dad, and but there are so many families out there that, like yours, like your daughters, that were separated from COVID. We couldn't see each other for 2 years. I mean, I know with my own father, I couldn't see him for 2 years before he died. And, you know, every time, and then when COVID was lifted, every time you'd go to get on a plane, flights were cancelled, back in lockdown. So to see books like this coming out, you know, is absolutely fantastic. So we talk about Australian audiences, but has the book been, where in the world is this book now?
Oh, so it's all over. So it's it's being sold in the States. I've gotten messages from people in Sweden, Germany, and just everywhere really. New Zealand. It's in Canada. So a Canadian influencer actually picked it up and did a reading, and it got over 20,000 views on YouTube. So it's pretty reasonably well spread at the moment, which is fantastic.
How does we talk about a worldwide audience, but how is it being received in the smaller town, in the town that you actually live in?
In Gingin? Oh yeah, it's been embraced really well, which is great. So I work a lot at the high school, local high school, and I've been really surprised that even the kids at the high school, when they hear me read it, they love it, and they're just so excited for me. And they're like, "Oh, we saw it." Some of the book is actually being sold in Cuppa Time in Gingin and the Courthouse Gallery, the town has been really supportive, and which has been fantastic. I've done readings at the library and the local playgroup there too. So yeah, it's been great.
Are you planning on, or do you think that you'll go further afield, and are there any trips planned for outside the region?
I would hope so, yes. It's just been a bit tricky logistically with the kids organising, but the book's recently been purchased by the Brisbane libraries. So I'm really hoping to get down to Brisbane and promote it there. And I'd love to go to Sydney, Melbourne to kind of promote it to schools and libraries and bookshops there if I can.
Oh, look, it is absolutely fantastic. And as I said, I love the colours. I just love the simplicity in all of it. And I love Little Nan. I think she's absolutely great. So is there any plans on bringing out like a little pa?
Yes, there are. I've been a bit slack though. Yes, no, that is in the back of my. I've been looking for a pa, but I haven't been able to find one to match Little Nana. But yes, I for some reason there just aren't as many puppet paws out there, or at least that I could find on the internet. So
well, I'll have to. I'm going to give you a bit of a plug here. So, for all of our Wide Bay viewers out there, if you have got connections and you see a little pa that you think could team up with Little Nan, let us know, because I'm sure Lauren would love. And look, she can't do it all on her own.
Thank you.
So we're going to take a break. We'll be back soon, and we'll chat some more. Well, welcome back to our chat with local Gingin artist and creator of The Not So Far Pa and the Nearby Nana, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren. Just before we went to the break, we were talking about the Nearby Nana and the Faraway Pa and talking about Little Nan. Now, I've got to say, I have read these books. Now, what I loved about this, especially being in Australia, is that I love the fact that we have, we've got Anzac Day in there, and there's a lot of things that really mean a lot to Australian people. I love the football scenes in here, and as you said before, you've kept really true to the fact that where you are in this world. So I think it's great that you've kept that we are Australia, you are in Australia. So do you think that there would be plans to maybe write books for people in other parts of the world?
Yeah, I guess it's funny because I'm not actually Australian. So it's kind of ironic that one of my friends actually commented, she was like, wow, that, it has a lot of really good Aussie slang, and like considering you're not really, Aussie, that it's funny that you've incorporated so much. Yeah, it's funny though, but I guess because the longer that I stay here, I mean, I've kind of been here for nearly 15 years or so, the less American I feel, and I think it would be really difficult now to write a book kind of catering to an American audience more so, or with American, I don't know, ideas more than Australian.
Have you ever had anyone say to you, because I know that there are certain things in the artists, in the industries, Australia, even though we are so well received, a lot of our Aussie slang and humour is sometimes lost in translation in the rest of the world. Have you ever had somebody say to you, I don't understand what that means? Or are they, because the books are so easy to read, or do you think that they just sort of get it? And because the pictures actually tell the story too?
Yeah, I guess the pictures help. Because I guess one of the things when in the Nearby Nana, I say when Mum's a bit busy or Dad's on the loo, a few friends were like, "Oh, what's what's a loo? How do you get on a loo?" And I did have to explain that one, and then everyone got it. But I guess the books are pretty self-explanatory, with the pictures, help with the meanings of Anzac and.
I think what I love about the Nearby Nana and the Faraway Pub, especially being written in Australia, when you wrote them, did you sort of not think, oh, maybe I should, maybe Americanise this, or was it always just the local content and see how it goes?
I just felt, it was just kind of how I think, really. When I was typing them out, I guess my train of thought now is probably a lot more Australian than it is American, and I probably do think more in Aussie slang than American slang, and Aussie, vernacular than American. So it's just probably the way that I process things now as an adult has changed.
Well, I know. I'm really glad that you've kept that Australian vernacular, as you said, that it is really good. So,
thank you.
As far as the meaning behind the book, do you think, as time goes on, do you think it gets any easier when we have these books come out? When we have, it's almost like these books to sort of brought a bit of awareness that we are living so far away from other people, and do you think that sort of helps break down that sort of gap a little bit?
I hope it does. When I did a reading at one of the local Bundy primary schools, and I just asked how many children here, it was 300 kids were sitting in the audience, how many children haven't seen their grandparents for a while and been separated from them. About 2/3 of the students popped their hands up and said, I haven't seen my aunt, or I haven't seen my uncle, I haven't seen grandpa. I do hope that it brings awareness that, this is, the whole pandemic and everything it's really, really hard for the children too. And it was such a difficult time for kids to not see their family and didn't really have an idea of what was going on and when they would see them again. So I do hope that it brings that awareness and just kind of lets other adults know, again, kind of honors adults that are filling in those roles in their communities. Because I have also, in that I've met a lot of children that have been separated from their family. I've also met or got emails from a lot of adults that have said, oh, I'm actually filling in as a nana for the kids, around the corner from me because they can't see their own nana, for whatever, she's interstate or overseas. So that's been really lovely too. And I think, especially Grandparents' Day is coming up on Sunday, which is a difficult day for a lot of children, and honoring those adults, seniors in our lives that are taking on those roles I feel it's really important.
I guess we, as adults, we have busy lives and we think about it, and we have, the children and they have school friends or they have activities, and I guess sometimes we don't always think about, the impact on being separated from grandparents. And I know myself, I always miss my grandchildren, but I guess I always just assumed that, they're so busy and they've got their friends and they've got this fantastic life in Victoria that I never, for me personally, I never even assumed that the kids would miss me. It wasn't until I got the messages that, we really miss you, Lola. And it got me to thinking about the books, and I thought, there are so many people out there. So after the Nearby Nana and the Not So Far Part, do you think that you'll diversify and go into other books down the road, maybe whether it's friends, whether it's, other relatives or other sort of family connections?
Yes, I would hope so. I have actually been, playing around with a few ideas that I've had. And yes, I have been thinking about other relatives, possible, other relations that that it would prompt a story. I've also entering the SBS Inspiring Voices competition, and I'm just trying to get that because I've always dreamed of writing a memoir, and it kind of just pushed me to write, the first 1,000 words of a memoir, or 2,000 words, so not very much, but sometimes I just feel like it's just getting that start, and it did push me to start it. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but I would always, that was always my dream, kind of, to write a memoir, and I don't know exactly where it's going to go, but yes.
So from the start, what was the time period from the start of sitting down, writing the book, to getting, that first bit of information about, once you've established how you're going to publish and your authors, what was the time frame from start to actually getting the physical copy of the book in your hand?
So it was roughly about 2 years. I would say that a year of that was me sending it out to, probably a year and a half of that was me sending it out to different traditional publishers, and then I would get contracts back, but I didn't like them. And I'd say, I don't know if this is the route that I want to go. So that, and I wasted a fair bit of time. Well, I guess it's not wasting, because who knows? Then Champa may have never come along at the time she did. But yeah, so it was probably about a year and a half or so of doing that, sending it out, getting back, and then I made the decision that I wanted to do it on my own. So once after I had written the story, and if you cut out all that time, it was probably only about 6 months really, to get it, get the illustrations done, formatted, and printed. So not very long really.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things.
Okay. So when you were talking about just before contracts and sending off to, I guess, traditional publishing, what were the differences in, say, the contracts? Were there bits that you looked at and went, well, I like that contractor, but I'd like that contractor to have this? Were they all fairly much the same, or did every publishing house have their own guides?
They were similar. The outlay was different, sometimes financially, and yes, and then so they were similar, but slight differences. But I guess the commonality between all of them was that you're kind of giving over your story, and then you have absolutely no say in it really. So you're handing it over, and they have their own illustrators that you don't really get to choose, and then you lose kind of all control over everything in the story, which I didn't really like, because I just felt like this story was quite personal to me, and I didn't want to give it over to someone else, and I did have a clear idea of what different characters would look like, and how I wanted the story to be formatted, and and self-publishing kind of gave me the opportunity to do all that on my own, and have a finished product that I was happy with, not a traditional publisher really. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are now starting to realise that we do have the options of independent and smaller publishing companies to help us go down that road. So for anyone that is thinking about starting their own book, or maybe it's just a little bit of a flicker at the moment, what would be the best advice that you could give them?
The best advice I would say is just to start writing, and yeah, just don't be afraid to get it out there. And once you have that, once you get that feedback, once you've written something, and like for me, it was actually like Tanya in the book boutique. When I brought it to her, she was the first non-relative, non-family friend that I gave it to her, and she was like, "Wow, I love this story. This is beautiful." And that moment was just so powerful for me as a writer. Like it gave me all the courage in the world, knowing that, oh hey, she's not my friend, she's not my relative, she doesn't know me, and she loves it, and she wants to have me in her shop to do a reading and whatnot, and it just made me feel really good. So I guess, yeah, the message would be just to think about that one person that you can reach, or that you may have an impact on their life, or and just sit down and do it, really. Yeah,
it's fantastic. So looking back, hindsight's always a wonderful thing. Is there anything that you would do differently, or what would you change about the whole process?
What would I change? It's a tricky one. I guess one thing that I've found I would say challenging, and that I didn't really realize before I went down the self-publishing route, was that it's actually really, really hard to get it into certain bookshops. So like say Dimmicks in town has the book, but QBD is only allowed to accept books published by certain companies. So even though like I've been to QBDs and the owner of the shop may really, really like it, then they're not allowed, they can't take it because they can only accept certain publishers. So maybe that would have been a reason to possibly go down the traditional route, just for the ease of distribution, which I had no idea about when I first started. And just how difficult like marketing everything would be. I didn't really know about that either. So it's been a big learning curve for me, but it's been fun.
So we talk about marketing. So where else, apart from bookstores, so do you go to book signings, and do you have copies of your books there as well?
Yes. So I've actually done really, really well in cafes, of all places, which I never really thought. But there are a lot of cafes and small businesses around Queensland, and small galleries. So it's been stocked at the Bundaberg. Well, it's not a small gallery, but the Bundaberg Regional Gallery and the Children's Art Space, the Gingin Gallery. There's a gallery in Hobby Bay that's stocking at Hatch. So yes, so I've been really lucky that a lot of and then heaps of cafes from Hobby Bay up to Rockhampton are stocking it, which is fantastic. So that's where I've had a lot of success, which has been great, unexpected really, but fantastic.
Look, that's fantastic to hear. Now, I'm actually going to put you on the spot here.
Okay, sure.
So just for our viewers, do you think you could possibly read maybe 1 or 2 pages of the Nearby Nan?
Sure.
And you've got to have little Nan, you've got to do the whole works.
Oh really? With little Nan? Okay, I guess I can. She doesn't usually read, but okay, she can. Make an exception. Okay. Ready, Nana?
So I'll let you get set up. Now, Lauren's going to get set up with the Nearby Nana. So I've just got to say, I love this. Now, I've seen Lauren in action, and if you are local, or even if you're not local and Lauren is around, you've got to go and see her. But anyway, so Lauren's going to read us a couple of pages of the Nearby Nana.
Ready, Nana?
I'm ready. Okay. Sometimes your Nana lives far away in New Zealand, Malaysia, or Zimbabwe. You may feel like you need a Nana close by, a Nana who can help teach you how to cook or just be there when you cry. Lucinda was a little girl whose granny lived in Bendigo, and her Gaga lived even further away in San Diego.
That is fantastic.
Thank you, Karina. I know I'm great.
I think that there's a bit of the child in all of us that loves puppets and loves puppets. And I just think that, combining the two is fantastic. And what I really loved about that was the fact that listening to that book and listening to you say that, I can hear when you mentioned Bendigo, and that takes me back to my family who are not far from Bendigo. So it's really nice to actually hear places that we can relate to here in Australia. And I mean, even places that people don't think about, when you say Zimbabwe or San Diego, we probably think, oh, maybe New South Wales or Melbourne or Sydney. And it just puts us on such a big platform. Now, I love this book. I just love it. And I think it is just absolutely wonderful. And on the back, for us football fans, AFL, how good is that?
Thank you.
I'm sure the guys absolutely appreciate that. But no, Lauren, it's been fantastic having you on. I really appreciate the fact that you brought little Nan and you allowed me to put you on the spot.
No worries. Thank you.
So I'm looking forward to seeing the next part of the journey that you've taken, and we'll pop all your details up. But it's just fantastic, and I've got to congratulate you. The job that everyone has done, and you've got your supportive team, so hats off to them as well.
Thank you so much. Yes.
And I look forward to seeing what's next. So
thank you, Karina. Thank you for having me.
So for everyone in Wide Bay, and even if you're not in the Wide Bay, go to the Facebook page, go to Lauren Covino's books and have a look at them. They can be purchased locally, and all the details will be up there on screen after this. But it's been fantastic. Little Nan and I are going to go and have some one-on-one time. So we will see you creating somewhere in the space.